So over the past 4 years of my career here at 4-wheel drive Supacentre and Adventure Kings, I've been fortunate enough to travel to some of the best campsites I reckon you'll find just about anywhere. And I still pinch myself, if I'm honest. I still pinch myself while I'm sitting around a fire having a beer with the boys, and I look up and see the Milky Way, and we're out in the middle of nowhere. Still doesn't quite make sense to me how I got so lucky to land a job where I'm actually getting paid to go out camping, and something that I'm extremely passionate about, as you guys probably know. But unfortunately at the moment I'm stuck in lockdown, like a lot of you probably are as well. So if you're addicted to the outdoors as I am, you'll do anything to get your fix. In my case, I've rolled out the swag, I've got the fire going, got a couple of cold ones in the fridge, and while I'm out here, I just couldn't help but think about all my favorite spots that I've been to. So I thought I'd share with you guys my top 5 campsites that I've been to over the years that really stand out in my mind. They're absolutely awesome campsites, and I reckon you should definitely write them down on your bucket list, because I guarantee you're going to absolutely love them. So first on my list is a place called Rag Trig down in the Victorian High Country. This one made it to the list for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the track that you take to get to the top of Rag Trig is absolutely unreal, and it's a must-do for any 4-wheel drive enthusiast. You honestly couldn't do a trip to the Victorian High Country without doing Rag. From the top there, you really do get some of the most spectacular views in the entire Victorian High Country. The best part about this track is that you don't need a massive patrol with lockers, 35s and reduction gears or anything like that to get to the top. In fact, the very first time I did it was a couple of years back in a bog stock Silver D-Max that you might have seen in some of our videos. The other reason why this stands out to me is because on that very trip, we were actually stranded on top of Rag Trig for a night after this insane storm ripped through. It just became way too dangerous to try and drive back down the track because visibility was next to nothing, plus the amount of rain and fog that we had, it was just way too slippery. From memory, there were about 7 people, including myself, on this trip, and while we're up the top, we were all huddled underneath this 6x3 gazebo because we were getting absolutely hammered with rain, wind and thunder. It honestly didn't even occur to us how dangerous this was until later on, considering we're on top of a trig point, in the middle of a lightning storm, but luckily no one was harmed, we didn't get struck by lightning, and when we woke up the next morning, the weather was absolutely beautiful and we got to see just how incredible the view is from up there. So if you're after a 360 degree view of the Victorian High Country, then Rag Trig is definitely a spot for you. Next in line is a spot called G-High Flats Campground, which is down in the snowy mountains of New South Wales. It's northwest of Mount Kosciuszko. And we travelled down there about a year ago, just after the launch of the MT1 camper trailer, and we really wanted to get the thing into some deep snow and to see how it handled it. Honestly, when I first pulled into the camp there, I was a little bit skeptical because I was told that it was supposed to be surrounded by mountains, but it was super foggy and we couldn't even see 50 metres in front of us. But once that fog cleared, we had this unreal backdrop of mountains covered in snow. It looked insane when golden hour came around because the late afternoon sun lit those mountains up like a Christmas tree. This would have to be up there with one of the most beautiful campsites around, plus there's heaps of friendly kangaroos around that'll keep you company. Now if you're planning a trip through Queensland, you'd be mad not to stay a couple of nights at Double Island Point. This is by far one of my favourite spots in all of Queensland, and I've camped there on at least 4 or 5 occasions, and every single time I camp there it blows me away as to how lucky we are to live in the most beautiful country in the world. The drive on the beachside to get to the campsites is about 35 k's long, which takes about 45 minutes, and it's some of the best beach driving you'll find anywhere. One of my favourite photos in our entire gallery is one taken by our head photographer Dean on Double Island Point a couple of years ago. We had this crazy tropical storm blow through about 15 k's south of where we were camping, so we got a full-on electrical show without getting drenched. Dean took full advantage of this and started taking photos of our Ford Ranger with the rooftop tent open. He ended up capturing this wicked photo of lightning screaming across the sky above the Ranger, so it dead set looked like the lightning was flying out of the rooftop tent. That trip was absolutely unreal, but again, every time I go there it blows me away because there's awesome fishing, crystal clear water, and the weather there is almost always good. Last year when we were in the early stages of testing out the suspension on the brand new MT1 camper trailer, I was lucky enough to go on a 9,500 k trip with some of our engineers to really put the trailer through its paces and absolutely thrash it on the harshest roads and tracks that we could find, and it honestly didn't miss a beat the entire trip. The last stop on that trip was a place called Cape Palmerston. This spot was absolutely unreal and offered some of the best beach driving I've ever done too. It's also a spot where crocs are known to visit. Fortunately for me, there were no crocs and we actually ended up bumping into a bloke who had been fishing there for about 10 years and he reckons he'd never even seen one. So don't let the crocs put you off. One of the main reasons Cape Palmerston made it to my list was because of the unbelievable sunrise you get there. The sunrise on our last morning there was absolutely unreal and I've never seen the sky so bright red. Normally you get a nice orange or pink colour when the sun's coming up, but this was full on bright red and it looked absolutely insane. I can't wait to get back there. When you talk about dream locations in Australia to go camping, I reckon right at the top of anyone's list would have to be Mornington Island. It's again one of my all-time favourite spots and I've only ever been there once. You get white sandy beaches, clear blue water, awesome fishing, snorkeling and dolphins, not to mention one of the best sunsets you'll ever witness. I went there for work back in 2019 and we camped on the west coast, which meant that we were obviously facing back towards the mainland. And at that time, the fireys were doing some backburning in the Glasshouse Mountains, which left some smoke clouds all the way across the mainland. These smoke clouds absolutely lit up at golden hour and gave us the best sunset any of us had ever seen. It really is a dream location, and that's why if I had to choose one campsite that I had to stay at forever, it would hands down be Mornington Island. Okay, because you stuck around and because this list was almost impossible to narrow down to 5, I thought I'd throw in another campsite which I reckon most of you might not have even heard of. It's a place called the Kakuri Ruins, north of Birdsville. The Kakuri Ruins is a former homestead built out of local limestone back in 1877 by two brothers. It was eventually abandoned in 1906 after years of tough drought and the loss of about 4,000 head of cattle. It's a real piece of history which stands as a reminder of how harsh that type of country is. There's a campsite about 50 metres from the ruins and it stands as my absolute favourite when it comes to stargazing, because there's absolutely no light pollution out there and there's no hills or any obstructions anywhere, so the horizon is absolutely insane. So if you're a fan of big night skies, then the Kakuri Ruins is definitely for you, and I'd venture to say that I wouldn't do a trip to Birdsville without making the drive north a couple of hours to see the Kakuri Ruins. So there you go guys, that was my top 6 favourite locations that I've been to with my career here at 4-Wheel Drive Supacentre. Again, it was almost impossible to make this list because there were so many awesome locations that I've been to, but to narrow it down, it was really tricky, but those are the top 6 that really stand out in my mind. Hopefully I've inspired you guys to get out there and start enjoying what this country has to offer. And if you reckon there's some dream locations that I need to get to or the whole team needs to get to, then go ahead and leave me a comment in the section down below because I'm dead keen to hear what you guys reckon. And as always, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Cheers.